Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel Biodiversity and Conservation. And my name is Balakshmi Raut from Ambika Prasad Research Foundation, India. And today we are going to continue our series of UGC NET examination for environmental science subject. And this is fourth part of Unit 3 Environmental Biology. And today we are going to continue on the functional attributes of the ecosystem, which is uh, we did the first part, trophic levels, and this is the next part, food chain of an ecosystem. So let's begin. Food chain. Food chain is the sequential interlinking of organisms involving the transfer of food and energy from producers through a series of organisms with repeated eating and being eaten is a general definition of food chain. So, in simple language, the food chain means the starting of the procedure of eating food from basic producer level to the consumer or top consumer level. So, food chain shows several possible pathways along which nutrients and energy can flow through an ecosystem. And in other words, the biotic factors of the ecosystem are linked together by food. For example, the producers form the food which are taken by the herbivores, and herbivores are in turn consumed by the carnivores, and the sequence continues till top consumers. And at each level of the food chain, like from producer to primary consumer to secondary consumer to tertiary consumer, there is transfer of energy. So a portion of the absorbed energy is generally lost as heat. So this is a complex network where the organisms um, obtain the nourishment, like the producers obtain actual food from the sun, which is the source of energy, and till the next level, this energy from sun is transferred to the higher levels with the loss of heat as energy. So in the food chain, due to this factor, there is a balance of energy in each and every step of this process. So now we are going to know about some characteristics of a food chain. So the transfer of energy in a food chain takes place through a series of organisms that consume and are consumed. So the food chain shows the nutritive interaction between biotic components of an ecosystem, and the plants and animals which depend on one another in a linear manner forms the limbs of a food chain, means the basic structure of the food chain. And the food chain is a unidirectional flow of energy from sun to producers and then to a series of consumers of various types like primary consumers, secondary consumers, etc. And the length of the food chain is actually the number of links in it. So here we are going to know about a new word, that is link. The trophic link actually are the relation between the organisms at each trophic level. Means the relation between a producer and a primary consumer is one link, means first trophic link, and the relation between primary consumer and secondary consumer is second trophic link. So these are the links. So the number of links will tell us the length of the food chain. If there are five links, then the length of the food chain will be 5. So this means it's a big food chain. And the average length of most food chains is generally 4 or 5. But sometimes the food chain can also extend up to 10 links. And this is a very rare case, but it happens in nature. And the shorter the food chain is, the nearer the organism is to the producer. And this represents the greater availability of energy in the population. And the food chains that have odd number of trophic levels um, indicates that the vegetation would be very lush and uh, would be a good population because the herbivores will be in check by the predators. But in case of even number of trophic levels in a food chain indicates low plant abundance due to the population of herbivores have increased in this type of food chain. And omnivores actually occupy more than one trophic level because they uh, they eat both plants and animals, so they can be placed in various food chains. Now we're going to discuss on the types of food chain. There are generally two types of food chain, that is grazing food chain and detritus food chain. But a special type of food chain has been added, that is food cycle. And we're going to discuss about all this one by one. First one is grazing food chain. Grazing food chain actually is a food chain where the starting point is green plants or autotrophs, and the ending point is carnivores, maybe top carnivores, but this passes through herbivores. And the gross production of plants require actually oxygen for respiration, and they are eaten by herbivores and they may die and decay. So this decides the production of plants. And in herbivores, the absorbed food is stored as carbohydrate, protein, and fat, and the energy um, is required to perform all the metabolic functions of the body. And the use of this energy acquired from plants is through three routes, mainly through respiration, through the decay of organic matter by the decomposers, and consumption by carnivores. So the with these three ways, the energy are used of the herbivores. And in grazing food chain also there are two types, that is prey predator food chain and parasitic food chain. Here are some examples of prey predator food chain. And it is it shows from the title only that here one animal is captured by another animal. And this food chain is very common in nature, and it's seen in every type of ecosystem. And these type of food chain is directly dependent on the solar radiation, on the sun actually. This is one example where carrots is the autotroph, which are eaten by rabbit, and rabbit is eaten by fox, and fox are eaten by lion. So This is one example of typical prey-predator food chain. And next one is parasitic food chain, where the plants and animals are infected by parasites. And one example is the presence of ticks or the mites, termites. They are present on animal and wood, all those things. So they are parasites, and this chain represents the parasitic food chain, where a smaller organism, the generally parasite, consume some parts or whole of the large animals or plants. But here is the catch, that they do not kill the host. They just live on them and acquire food from them by causing some damage, little damage, but they don't cause their life. So this is parasitic food chain. And next one is detritus food chain. And from the title only, we can know that detritus means waste material. So in this food chain, the waste materials are eaten by the insects or the earthworms, etc. So they will use the energy present in the detritus or waste materials as a source of energy, and they will continue to consume them and give out the waste materials that we call humus, which is good for soil. And the insect is then eaten by birds or mice, etc. So this type of food chain shows detritus food chain. Here the food goes from dead organic matter into microorganisms and then to organisms that feed on detritus and their predators. So, in this food chain, the energy flow remains uh, as a continuous passage rather than stepwise flow, and the energy storage for this system of food chain is largely external to the organisms and the detritus itself. The organisms mm, that are present in this food chain are algae, bacteria, fungi, some insects, and some centipedes, some annelids, nematodes, etc. And they break down the complex organic matter present in the organic waste or dead tissues into simpler humic compounds. So they are generally decomposers. These are the examples of the detritus food chain, where the dead leaves are eaten by wood louse and the wood louse is then eaten by the blackbird. And in the second one, the detritus is eaten by earthworm and the earthworm is consumed by mice or mouse. And this one is the special type of food chain, food cycle. Here actually one or more trophic links are starting and ending from the same species. Means it is actually the major cycle of cannibalism, where the species means uh, mainly we can see these two examples where the spider eats a wasp and a wasp is then eating a spider. So in this condition, the cycle length is 2, which means A eats B and B eats A. In this case, here the spider is eating the captured wasp, And in the second picture, we can see that the wasp and other insects are using spider as their food. So now we will see the significance of the study of these food chains, why we require to study the food chains. So when we study the food chains, we understand the feeding relationships and the interactions between the organisms in an ecosystem. So this feeding relationship will make us know about the energy flow mechanism and the matter circulation in ecosystems. And from understanding that, we can also understand the movement of toxic substances in the ecosystem and the problem of biological magnification. We have known a simple case of DDT where the DDT is used to kill the mosquitoes, but uh, when they started spraying this DDT regularly, we saw that the chemicals are getting aggregated in the ecosystem with larger amount. So these substances then get inside our body in more and more amount. This will cause poisoning of our body because little by little we are getting habituated with DDT. So this process is called biological magnification, means increase in the amount of toxic substances in our body or in the body of any other organism slowly is uh, the process of biological magnification which will cause harm eventually. This is all from me today. Thank you.